G'day everybody, this is a build that I've done this week for just for fun actually. It's based on Murray's Corner that's at Bathurst. I was in a different town last week and I was in a Target shop looking at Hot Wheels cars and got talking to a guy that was in Target looking for Hot Wheels cars, and it was a fun conversation. We were chatting away and I showed him some pictures of the clouds that you can print for the dragging, having your car doing those burnout clouds, and asked him would he like some, and he said yes. So he was game enough to give me his details, and I came home and printed some. But when I'd finished printing them and painted them, I thought, look, this would be better if you could put it on a racetrack. And I had a spare piece of board. I'm on holiday. I have been on holidays this week, so I decided to give it a go. So this was the size board that I had. I mucked around a little bit, making sure that the cars could do what they need to do, and you can fit both. And then I went and found some pictures of Bathurst, and off I went. So I laid out the board, drew the markings on the thing, and taped it up, which is what you've seen. And then it was outside with a can of black rattle can. There you go. And I also went over the top of it with a medium grey, but the medium grey I held really far back and I just dusted it, because later I'm thinking that I want to put tyre marks on it, and I wanted the tyre marks to show up against the bitumen, because the tyre marks tend to be blacker than the road, funny as that sounds. I marked off used the masking tape to give myself a template for making I don't know what it's called. It's the guttery bit that you can go over, a berm probably, that you can go over. So I made the berm out of some cardboard and bent it a little bit to shape, and then I filled it with the last of the gap filler from a tube, and smoothed that down, turned it over so that when it finally hardens up, the berm won't squash if somebody sticks a car on it or lens on it or something or other like that. After I'd done the berm, it was outside to paint it white. I showed you an undercoat, but I didn't actually undercoat it. While that was drying, I came back in and used some tape, which I cut. I had 1-inch tape, and I cut it down to smaller sizes. You can buy 3mm and 6mm tape from car shops, but I didn't have any. And then I just went around the masking tape that I'd already put down, and then left the gap and went around again to mark off where I'm going to do the white lines for the denote the edges of the track. I wasn't going to spray these, so I didn't have to be as serious about how wide the tape was, because I was going to sponge, because I want it to look like the white paint has been driven over by the cars, and that the cars have taken the paint off like it looks like in the pictures when you see the actual racetracks. Then I noticed that on the Bathurst Murray's Corner they actually still have the markings for where the cars start that are way back in the race, and I thought that'd be an interesting thing to just make the board a little bit more interesting. So I did 2 of those, used the Pied Piper car to give me the basic width of it all, and then set about making some lines on the road that I could then sponge. So it's just a matter of taping it all up, making sure everything was cool, and then getting some. For this I just used some basic white house paint that's in a tester pot, and then a bit of daggy old sponge. Probably could have got a better sponge, but this was a tiny little bit that was lying around. It wasn't the most comfortable to use, but it was actually a pretty good width for not getting past the tiny little bit of sticky tape that I had. So I just back and forth with that until I had went and got a better bit of sponge that wasn't old and crusty, and just dabbed around, making sure, trying to make sure not to get it onto the black part of the track. There were mistakes, and I did have to rub it off with a little bit of water and stuff throughout the process. But once I got it down there, I just then had to let it dry. I was busting a puffle valve to get this finished this week and posted off to the guy, and so I used a heat gun off camera, and then I came back and used a scalpel and my fingers to pull up all of the tape, and that left us with some pretty good markings on the track, and I thought that looked pretty fandoodly. again, just checking that it was going to look pretty amazing when it was finished. I really love these little clouds. They are so cool. And there's a rally one that I'm thinking about buying too. So once I had got that back in from spraying it outside, I had a look at the Bathurst. So this is Murray's Corner at Bathurst. It has the red and white stripes on the berm. So again, just get some masking tape. For most of this job, I think actually the bigger areas were all just done with rattle cans, and it was just a guesstimate. This is a good one, cherry red. Took it outside, gave it a spray, let it dry, and came back to it, and then pulled the tape off that was masking off the road. Glued it down with PVA glue because it's cardboard and gap filler, that will hold it okay. And then I got some green paint and went around and marked out the road. I had a look in the process of doing this and discovered that there's actually a drain at the end of Murray's Corner, so that it doesn't get, those of us that live in Australia know, the Bathurst race regularly incurs rain, so there's a drain hole stuck in the end of Murray's Corner. I decided instead that I didn't have any drains, but I did have some leftover manhole covers from when I was doing the petrol station builds. So I grabbed one of them and decided to recess it into the ground. It's not road. Got the little manhole cover, offset it, cut the edge off so it was square and went into the hole better. And then I got what was left remaining of the gap filler that was in that tube, and boy, I had to push hard to get it out, and plonked that around the edges, and then used super glue in the middle of the manhole cover and glued it down, and then used a bit of a toothpick and a pencil, builder's pencil, to just make it look a little bit more groundy and a little bit less gap fillery. While all this was wet, the green paint hadn't really had time to dry much. I went over it with a little bit of brown. Now, I anticipated making a barricade, and I thought that the brown would show up like where people walk along behind the barricade and make it a bit muddy, but you'll find out in a minute that the barricade had to move over a little bit to fit the road. So I jumped in Blender and made some I thought they looked pretty standard barricades that suited a, Hot Wheels Matchbox type car, one of just little die-cast cars. And I looked on the reference photos. The barricades do come up to about the size of a car, so I made them around about 2.5 centimetres tall. And now I did make a mistake and used the wrong measurements in Blender and printed a whole lot that came out only 2.5 millimetres tall, and that wasn't good, but I've got some strange railings for later. Redid it at the right height, stuck them in lychee and sliced them. There were some topography issues in the models, and so the straight ones printed perfectly. The large round one printed excellently. Did pull away a little bit from the bed in the middle, but the small round curve was missing an end that I didn't notice, and if I'd have been not rushing so much. I made some signage for the thing. This is the sign, as far as I can tell, this is the guy's business from the town that I was in, so you probably feel like I stalked him now. And I did a thing for his business so that when he's taking his photos he can stick it on. So as you can see now, there was a little bit of letting go and blowing out on the big curve, and I marked off about where it was going to go. Tried to glue them together. There wasn't enough surface area, so gave up on that and went and sanded everything first. So everything got a good sand, and I also sanded the inside of that round bit to make it a bit neater from where I was just trying to carve it. It was lifted a little bit off the ground, but the signs are going to cover that, and they do. You don't see that it doesn't touch properly, and it all looks good. So glued it together, let it take for a little bit, sprayed it with a bit of accelerator, and then took it outside and sprayed it with a primer that was grey because I wanted it flat. I didn't want to use one of the gloss primers. So I was a bit worried about just where the join is on one of the ends of the the barricade, because I'd sanded it to get the angle for it to disappear off up the road, I'd taken back a bit. So I just put a little bit of bicarb soda and super glue inside that, took it outside and sprayed it with a flat primer, just an etch primer that's a light grey, and then I came in with a toothbrush and did black. It's straight black, but I think it's a Vallejo one too, but it might be Army Painter model colour, forgotten which. But I put a fair bit of water on it. I then did a light grey. It wasn't London grey, it was something or other that was a lighter grey. And then finally I went over all of that with deck tan and really laid the deck tan on so that this looks just like a motley, concretey, marbly thing. Turned out pretty good, and I'll show you that in a second. I'm pretty sure how it turned out. Oh, that's right. Dried it off with a heat gun so that I could pick it up and show you what it looked like. And the whole build, I think if I hadn't actually sped up the thing, I think the whole build was still less than 4 hours from go to O. So I did it over 3 days, but it was still pretty fast. I've been doing other things on my holidays as well, reading books and relaxing. So there you go. It's concretey enough looking, stony looking, and I am very, very happy with the way that it's come out. Then when I put the barricade on, I noticed that to get the barricade to line up a little bit better with the available space, that I needed to have made the road a bit wider. So I just got some black game colour, the same black that I've been using for spattering and things, and made it a little bit thicker out from the road, so that when I do finally glue the barricade on, the barricade will be covered up. Will cover up the road, and the line that's marking on there will still have a gap between it. Then it was a matter of just some PVA. Because all of these paints were acrylic, I just went with PVA for glue on the advertising to the racetrack. What was I going to think then? Oh yes, before I did anything, after I'd printed the pages, I took them outside and sprayed them with a coat of clear varnish, just so that when I was putting the paint and stuff on them, the design wouldn't bleed or do anything weird. So super glued it down, and then noticed a little bit of a gap. Decided now to do the flocking for the grass. In hindsight, if you're going to do this, wait a little bit, because I forgot that I had just put glue on the inside of the barricade to hold the bottom of the sign down. And when I got the flocking machine and did it, I had grass growing out on the inside of the track, and I had to come along with a brush and a whole lot of water and try and clean it away, which it did. It came off, but if you can avoid the doings, that would be a better way to do it. So the flocking is pretty much the majority of everything that had to get done. I did have a look at all of the pictures, and there are lots of tyre marks. So I had a look at a whole lot of curves and where the tyre marks go and what tyre marks on racetracks look like. There was some glue, and like I said, when I tipped all the grass off, I noticed now that there was grass growing inside the barricade. So I went along and put successive wipes with the towel and brushes of water, got rid of it. I did a little bit of testing and came up with the best way to put the road on was to drive a wheel. I wasn't prepared to donate a Hot Wheels car to it, so I got a base that was left over that I'd printed just for a 32mm figure, and I sanded the edge of it flat rather than beveled, and then I put it with a blue tack on a pencil, and I drove around the course back and forth, just dipping the paint in the black, and it went on and on and on and on and on, and I did it over and over and over, and I don't know how many times I made passes over the road, but it might have been 100. There was a lot of it to get it there, and I cut the thing a bit short showing you, but I tried to, based on the pictures of where the cars come round, it appears that where they brake and where they turn hard is the place. There's not a lot of the tyre marks in the middle of the road because that's not the line that they take. So I did this. This was in a flat black acrylic. So although it looks pretty dark here, When it dried, I dried it with the heat gun, and when it dried, it goes flatter, so it's not as, yeah, it looks more tiry. So that is it. That's it done. It's finished. All I got to do now is pack it away in some sort of post thing and post it off to Dane. I hope he really likes it. I know he's not expecting it. He's expecting some burnout clouds, and that's it. And then I just took some glamour shots for myself because it's fun. And that's a Matchbox car from the 1970s when I was a child. So it's 50 years old, that Matchbox car. I love it. It's a very fast car, that one. It would probably go really well in the Hot Wheels race-offs, which if you feel like watching them on YouTube, it's addictive. They do Hot Wheels races, so if you want a bit of an afternoon to spend. Thanks for watching. I hope you have had fun, and I will see you with the next video.